morning long, but I know that we've got an amazing topic to cover as well. So I want to go ahead and get us started. So welcome everybody. My name is Deb Evans and I'm a lead coach here at Tailored Fundraising. And thank you for all of your fun Thanksgiving ideas, and Marianne, your fun recipe that we're gonna send out to everyone, and I hope everyone has an awesome Thanksgiving. But I want to introduce you first to our team today. So Marianne, you've met already with the blue cheese casserole. She's one of our coaches here, and she's going to be helping in facilitating today. And then we've got Lindsay, who makes that amazing cranberry dish, whatever that is. She's our operations manager, and she's going to be running chat and also monitoring the Q&A box. And then we've got Kavina, all the way from Thailand, who is our marketing director, and she's running slides for us. And we are looking forward to being with you guys today. We're going to look at the different types of virtual fundraising, technology platforms that we recommend, and also how to maximize technology for stronger relational fundraising with individuals and groups. So before we dive in, we want to walk through a quick Zoom tutorial. In your Zoom screen, you're going to see a chat button. And this is an interactive webinar. We want to ask you, just like you've been doing, to put your thoughts or your suggestions, your ideas in the chat. It's also where we're going to put some helpful information and some links. Just make sure that once you've opened the chat that you click on that blue button at the bottom and select everyone, so that everyone joining can see all of the different things that are being shared there. And then for your questions, I want to draw your attention to the Q&A box. So if at any time you've got a question, put that question in the box. Lindsay's going to be monitoring that, and she will bring up your question. So don't worry about it. We will get to all the questions in the box before our time is over. But if you put your question in the chat, it can easily get lost. So make sure you put it in the Q&A box. So while this webinar focuses on virtual fundraising, and we're going to talk about the different technology platforms to support your efforts, we want to make it clear that we still believe in the power of live fundraising, and we want to encourage you to connect with people personally as much as you can. Because fundraising is still at its heart a relationship business. And the vast majority of donors still give for personal reasons, and they're motivated by a trust and a close relationship with the person or the organization that's asking. So that means that we won't be teaching you how to outsource all of your fundraising to technology platforms. Software in no way can replace that connection that human connection can have. So we're going to talk about how to maximize technology to support that personal connection when you're not able to be physically present. And so that's going to lead us to our first poll question. Which of these obstacles do you face when you think about virtual fundraising? So this is a multiple choice question. I don't have time. I don't know how to best connect with people. I don't think that other people are going to want to connect with me virtually. I don't have ways to connect virtually, like I don't have internet or cell service. Or, hey, this is great. I don't see any obstacles at all. Marianne, what do you think people are going to say?
I'm guessing it might be number 3. I don't think other people will want to connect virtually.
I was thinking 2 or 3. Yeah, we'll see what everybody says. But I think I've heard my clients say, I think people are zoomed out. And I think there's a little bit of truth to that. There's a little bit of Zoom fatigue, but it is a great option. But we have other options too, which we'll explore in a minute. But let's see what the poll says. Number 2, I don't know how to best connect with people is number 1. Okay, well, good. Well, that's why you're on this call. Great. Thanks for doing that. All right. So the first thing that you want to do when you're thinking about hosting a virtual meeting is to ask this question: why does it make sense to do it virtually? And a key factor in determining that is to know your audience. So let's explore. Oh, what?
No. I was just going to jump in.
Oh, go for it.
So what are some of the reasons that you might want to do a virtual meeting? So this is by no means an exhaustive list, just a general brainstorm. So one reason might be that some people in your audience are COVID conscious. They are not ready to meet live yet, and that's okay. Another may be that there might be physical distance between you and a potential partner. You might be overseas, or if you're stateside, the person is in another state. Another one would be you might not be able to afford to travel to a church or a group that you don't have, or you don't have the time to travel. And then the fourth would be either of you might have small kids. So let's say one or more of those is true. What might be some of the reasons that you might not want to do a virtual meeting? One would be if you are not tech savvy or your potential partner is not tech savvy. If that's the case, you might not want to meet virtually. So if either of those is the case, you need to just go old school and use the phone. So with fundraising in general, it's easy to psych ourselves out. We think it's too hard, or we don't have the time, or we don't want to make the time, or we overestimate how much capacity we have for fundraising and try to do too much at one time. But we do have good news for you. It is possible, and it actually doesn't have to take that much time. And you can do fundraising in small chunks. So let's think about this in terms of steps we would take if we were to connect in person. So first, we would plan what to share and how to share it. Second, we would invite someone to a meeting. Third, we would have the meeting. And fourth, we would follow up well. And that sounds simple enough, right? So what does that look like virtually? We're going to walk you through a suggested plan for fundraising when in person just isn't an option, or it isn't the best option for you. So feel free to put any questions you have in the Q&A. And if you have things that you've done that have worked, please don't hesitate to share that with others in the chat as we go along. Okay, so let's go. Step one, plan what to share and how to share it. The key here is to think through your connection with this person and what they know about the work. So regardless of what they know, you want to pique their interest. Before even inviting someone to a meeting, you need to explain the ministry in a way that they want to hear more, whether that is for the first time or whether they have been partnering with you. It could be sharing the need, or it could be sharing the impact, or both. We suggest having multiple written resources. So a short text, a Facebook message, an email, but you need to keep that email under 400 words. Do not make it super long and wordy. Plan all of these communications ahead of time so that when you do reach out, you are prepared to connect in the most meaningful and effective way possible. We're going to give you an example of that in a minute. So what's your connection with this person? How and why do you want to connect with them? Is it because you have some kind of a relationship with them already? Or is it because you know that they might have an interest in the mission? It could be a high school physics teacher from 20 years ago, or it could be someone who signed up for a newsletter at a church that you spoke at 10 years ago, or just someone from one of your social media platforms. The list here is endless.
And it is true. I have a guy who's raising money from overseas right now, and he is going back. The high school physics teacher is one example. He is kind of like creating pods of people going through his contacts. So don't say no for anyone. All right, step two, invite someone to a meeting. This should start with something in writing. So a long outdated strategy is just kind of pick up the phone and call someone. And phone calls still can be effective, but what we're trying to say is not as the first step. So studies show that when people have a heads up that a phone call is coming and they know what the call is about, they're 40% more likely to respond to the call. 40% is huge. So while phone calls can be effective in fundraising, always start with something in writing so that people know what to expect. So what does in writing mean? Well, for our virtual purposes, this could look like an email, or it could look like a message through social media or a messaging app. That's right, we can use messaging apps for fundraising, ones like WhatsApp, Telegram, or Signal, or many others are great options too. But they're already tools to stay connected relationally with people, so let's maximize that for fundraising as well. So the big difference here is that it's not a mass message or a mass post. It's a personal message that's communicating that you want to connect with them. Email gives you freedom to write a little bit longer, but text actually, when you think about the response rates, email gets about a 6% response rate, while messaging gets a whole lot more, like 40-45% response rate. So here's an example of a text or a social media message that you could use. So it simply reads, so hey, whoever you are, this is Joe and Sally Beal. I hope that you and your family are doing well and enjoying the holidays. I'm reaching out because due to COVID, our family's been relocated from China to Thailand along with many Chinese people. And this gives us the opportunity to continue working with this community and the ability to share Jesus with Thais. We'd love to catch up and hear what God's doing in your lives and also share about what he's doing in the lives of college students and how you can make an eternal impact through prayer and giving. Are you up for a video chat this week or next? I'll check back in a few days if I don't hear from you. I want to give you a little tip here. A lot of people say to me, how do you make those spaces in a message? So to make spaces in between sentences in a message, all you do is put your cursor at the end of the row where you want to make the space, and then you hit Shift and return, and that will make a space for you. Now, these brief sentences follow an important process for all of your fundraising communication. First of all, you want to state what the ministry is, sharing Jesus with Chinese and Thai college students. So even if you think they already know, just go ahead and say it, because you would be amazed and maybe slightly horrified to know how many people don't actually remember what you do or have read your updates to know that you've even actually moved. So you want to state that. Second, be clear that you're looking for people to financially partner. Don't skirt around the issue. Don't say you're looking for prayer partners if you really want them to consider a financial partnership. Be clear and be honest. If you do want them to consider a prayer partnership in addition to a financial partnership, great, feel free to say that, but don't use it as a way to sneak in or to soften the financial ask. Third, we want you to ask a yes or no question. This shouldn't be a, if you're interested, click here kind of a thing, because that's not relational. We want to ask a question that warrants a response so that they know that we're specifically talking to them and not just anyone or everyone. And lastly, communicate the next step. You'll notice on the end of that, we said in a few days, I'll follow up with you. Letting them know that we're going to follow up lets them know that what's really important to us is that we really do want to connect and hear from them personally. So I want to pause here, because some of you, when I said, in a few days, I'll follow up, may have thought, see, I don't have that kind of time. But I submit to you that you actually do. But you dictate how many people you're going to do this with at one time. So some of you could have a season where you're focusing on this full time. Great. You could do 20, 30, maybe even 50 people at once, depending on your capacity and goals. And when I say that, I'm talking about this one guy that I've been sharing with you. He is a father of 5, has a child on the way, and he's got 30 to 60 people in his queue at all times, and he is killing it. So he's in a season of full-time fundraising from overseas. He is still a team leader, but he's kind of pulled back on those responsibilities, but he's still teaching English some. So, there's a lot going on, but it depends on your capacity and what your goals are. So for those of you who are still really heavily involved in local ministry, you might just want to start with 4, and that's okay. Sending a message to 4 people today is going to take about 20 to 40 minutes, or even less if you just copy and paste the example we use to each person. And then in a few days, you take another 10 to 15 minutes to follow up with those 4 people. And that ends up actually being less than 1 hour that week. If that's still too much, then reach out to just one person. Starting small is okay, but we want you to just start somewhere. So statistically speaking, about half the people that you reach out are going to meet with you. So if you're reaching out to 4 people, you could have 2 meetings by the end of the month. And because we let them know in our first communication that we're looking for financial partners, those who meet with you are likely to become new partners. So you could have 2 new partners by the end of this month. How would that feel? And that didn't take much time at all, did it? And I guarantee you that when someone says yes to a meeting, you are more than happy to find time to meet with them.
Yeah. So step 3 is have the meeting. Step 1 is plan what to share and how to share it. Step 2 is to invite someone to a meeting. And step 3 is to actually have the meeting. But there are a few parts to having a meeting, and the first one is actually getting the meeting set up. It often takes a good bit of follow-up from your initial message to actually nail something down. And you can continue to follow up using the same method, email or social media. But it's actually better if you can find a different way to contact them, like a phone call. So earlier we said phone calls are not an effective first step, which is true, but they actually are a pretty effective first follow-up. And not that most people will answer their phone, because they will not, but a phone call does stand out. So especially if you're calling from another country, people are like, whoa, they really want to talk to me. So because of that, we highly recommend making a phone call as your first follow-up, because it gets people's attention, and therefore it makes it more likely that they're going to respond to future follow-ups. If you do call, be sure to leave a voicemail if they don't answer, and then shoot them a quick text message right after, letting them know that it's you and that you want to connect, which often gets higher responses. If you don't have an international phone plan, Skype has incredibly affordable credits that you can use to call a person's mobile phone anywhere in the world, but you can always use any of the Messenger app call options as well. I know WhatsApp, you can call video using WhatsApp, FaceTime, that kind of thing. So try every method that you have. Start with a text or social media message, follow up with a phone call, then text or social media, then email. Try all of the options that you have to see which one gets a response. This is best done every 3 days over about 2 weeks. And I know that that might sound like overkill, but it is not. People are busy and the reminders are helpful. It communicates urgency on your part, and it shows that it's important for you to connect with them personally. It's effective. One of our clients this week reached out to 15 Instagram friends that have been following some of her posts. She had 4 people respond and 1 person sign up for a virtual meeting. She would say that the key was weekly posts about the country where she is going and going to serve, and how their family is learning the language and preparing to present the gospel to displaced refugees. She's been diligent to follow up on anyone's comment and send short personal messages that showed she cared about the person, but also wanted to include them in their future mission. Another tip we have is whenever anyone signs up for your newsletter, automatically friend them on social media. One of our clients is reaching out to people from years ago with great success. You don't know where people are in their lives. Like you could say, I've known this person 10 years ago and they are, maybe not a believer, or we weren't super great friends or whatever, but you don't know where people are in their lives right now. So don't count anybody out. So once someone has expressed interest in meeting, an online scheduler can come in really handy so that you're not going back and forth a million times and explaining the different time zones to people. So don't send the scheduling link unless they've said yes to a meeting. So remember, we want an actual answer first, not just click here if you're interested. That bypasses the relationship a bit. For schedulers, our personal favorite is Acuity, because they have a free version that gives you a lot of control over your availability and is very user-friendly. But there are other plenty of options too, including Calendly or Doodle, that work well. And they allow each person to put in their own time zone, so there's less of a chance of confusion. So even if you have to pay for it, it's worth it for 1 to 2 months, as it's going to pay for itself.
Hey, Marianne, I'm going to chime in here for just a second, because a few people had mentioned that time zones were a big struggle for them as far as virtual partnership. And so I think this is a big key to unlocking that or overcoming that obstacle, is to use a scheduler. And I know some people may think that it might be impersonal to say, oh, here's my link, schedule a time. But really, it's just cutting back on so much extra communication, and it's easier for people. So don't think of it as impersonal. Think of it as you're saving their time,
I fully agree. Yeah, that's a really good word, Lindsay. Look, we serve in Ireland, and I'm in the States right now, but that's an 8-hour difference from the Pacific time zone that I'm in right now. And 8 hours is that's a big chunk. But using that calendar, that scheduling calendar is super helpful, because there's no confusion, especially when daylight saving times happens, because it happens differently in the States than it does overseas by like a week. So yeah, very good word. So once you do agree on a time, you need to agree on a venue. And video chat is the recommended way to connect because having a visual makes a difference. Not only in how connected that you feel to each other, but it does help make sure you're paying attention to each other as well. At this point, most video platforms are pretty comparable to one another, but it is helpful to think about how easy it will be for your potential partner to use. COVID has really helped get a lot of more people on video platforms. So you may just want to ask what they're comfortable with and make it extra easy for them. But some popular ones too that each have their own pros and cons for you to dig into are, of course, FaceTime, Zoom, of course, most social media messenger apps with video options. So for individual meetings, ask the potential partner which platform is best for them, or then just say, I prefer to meet over Zoom. Is that okay with you? So we're going to pause here for a poll question. Which platform do you use most for virtual partner meetings? So the question is, which platform do you use most for virtual partner meetings? Is it Zoom, FaceTime, Skype, Facebook Messenger, Microsoft Teams, Google Meet, GoToMeeting, or Cisco WebEx? What do you think, Deb?
I'm going to say Zoom.
I was going to say FaceTime or Zoom. Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yep,
I use WhatsApp a lot. WhatsApp's not even on there, but that's mostly for not a meeting. That's mostly for like just personally checking up with people, like just catching up with people. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, Zoom. Yep, 80%.
Mm-hmm.
By 80%, that's crazy.
That's huge.
Yeah. Okay, so once you do come to an agreement on the time and the venue, send a confirmation message with those details, making sure that you are communicating in the potential partner's time zone. And if a link is involved, add the link as well. So another great option is to create a calendar event with all of those details and invite them to it so that they have it on their calendar. And that also helps make sure the time zones are correct. It's always great practice to resend the information a day or even an hour beforehand via email or message or text so that they don't have to go searching for that information at the very last minute.
Yep. Well, I try to avoid confusion and make it as easy as possible for them. Someone in the chat said they think that maybe Skype now is outdated, but who knows? I think we've all gravitated towards Zoom because of the functionality. There's so much functionality in there. Who knows what Zoom has done? I mean, who knows what Skype has done to kind of bring their platform up? Don't know what they've got. But anyway, so the second part of having a meeting is knowing what to say. That is really, really, really important. Don't show up without being prepared. A general flow to follow is something like this. So first, you want to start with connecting relationally. This is super important because, of course, this is about relationships, right? And we haven't seen some of these people in years, and you would be surprised at how much fun fundraising becomes when you start with the relational. Expect somewhere between 5 and 15 minutes of this, depending on who you're meeting with. Ask them how they're doing. Ask them what's new in their world. Where's God tugging at their heart? How do they spend their time? Sometimes people just want to jump right into the presentation, but this relational connecting piece is so important because it's a two-way relationship. So make sure that you're just not talking over them as well, but that you're really listening to what it is that they're saying, and then try to incorporate that, leverage that later on in the presentation, refer back to something that they've said, or even ask them a question about how what you're talking about is relating to something that they may have said early on. So make sure that you start with a relational 10 or 15 minutes. All right, second, you want to prepare a transition into your presentation. This is the awkward part, right? So a great question that you can ask to help with the transition is, what about this ministry has you interested in talking about partnership? Another great transition to say is simply, hey, thanks for taking some time to meet with me. I'm really excited to share more about what God is doing and how you could be involved. And then off you go. If you're meeting with a particularly chatty person, that's really hard. That person just doesn't stop talking. You probably are just going to have to interrupt them. And a great transition for that is, kind of like I did at the beginning. Like, I'm sure we could talk about these Thanksgiving things all day long, but I know that we really have something to get to today. So I'm sure we could talk for hours, but I really want the opportunity to share more about the ministry and invite you to be part of it. Would that be okay? And then obviously they're going to say yes, and off you go. So at this point, then you want to start sharing the details of the ministry. And this part should probably take about 10 to 15 minutes. Any more than that, and you're probably sharing too many details and you're going to lose your listener. So keep it simple. What's your mission statement? One sentence. What's your vision? One sentence. What are a few sentences that you can share on the challenges or the needs that your village or city is facing to show that the ministry is needed? What story could you potentially share there? Maybe preparing a 2-minute story of the impact that you're seeing because of the ministry. Not maybe, that is essential. If you don't share impact or future impact, that's what people want to see. That's what people follow is vision and impact. So share a story about that or share a statistic about that. It doesn't have to be, an impact story doesn't have to be, hey, this person got saved or this person's been baptized. Those are awesome stories, but we can also see God moving in so many other ways too. Like, who's someone that you've seen God move in their heart, taking them from point A to B as a result of a conversation or something? Is somebody coming to mind right now? Is there somebody that you can point to say, this person, God is working in their life, transforming their heart? Write that name down. And after this call, write that story out and practice that story. If you need help on storytelling, we've got a webinar recorded. Lindsay's going to put that in the chat. You can go ahead and watch that video. The other thing I would say here is try to put at least 1 or 2 questions in your 10 to 15 minute presentations too, so that it's not just coming off as a 10 to 15 minute presentation where you're doing all the talking, but try to make it conversational. We like to plant a couple of questions, especially like before the needs section. A good question would be like, so what do you think the needs are of this people group, or something like that? And then get their feedback and then launch into what the needs are. All right, lastly, really important is to have a specific invitation to financial partnership. And we would love to encourage you to write this out, because here's where we see a lot of people like just taking some bunny trails and they go on and on and on, or they start preaching because they're uncomfortable, whatever. Write it out. There are many ways to do this. One quick example could be, would you join our team at $100 a month to share the good news with Asian college students? It's not to support me so that I can go do the work, but in order for Asian students to be hearing the gospel, would you join the team at $100 a month? When you ask that question, then you want to stop and you want to let them answer. There's nothing worse than asking a question and then fumbling through more words because you're uncomfortable. It makes everybody uncomfortable. So pray, take a deep breath, be bold, ask the question, and then let them answer.
So step 3 is what to show. If you do have physical items you would normally bring with you to a meeting, whether that's like a brochure, a one-pager, a prayer card, photos, etc., you could still do this during your virtual meeting by sending those things digitally, or an extra nice touch would be to mail those pieces physically so that you have them to look at before, or that they have them to look at before, during, or after your meeting, if that's possible. Might not be possible, but if it is, that's a great touch. So no worries if you don't have any items. You don't need to create a lot of new things. Just ask yourself, can what you already have be shared digitally, or is there something that you can easily create? This can also be a great space to have a PowerPoint that you walk people through. Most video platforms have the ability to share your screen, which is often better than sending them the file so that they're tracking with you instead of looking at the slides at their own pace and potentially not listening well. So if you do plan to use a PowerPoint, practice ahead of time so it can go as smoothly as possible. Jump on the video call with a friend or family member beforehand and practice sharing your screen, and start the PowerPoint and stopping it, making sure that you know how to do it properly. And it's especially helpful to stop the PowerPoint before you make the invitation to partner. So stop sharing your screen before you're inviting them to partner so that you can see each other's faces while doing so. Now, I do a lot of practice appointments with Tailored, and some of these clients have slide presentations. So one thing that I see a lot of is when people share their slides with me, sometimes they have these really beautiful slides that have just words on them, and they're just saying the words that are already on the slides. And whereas they are doing a really good job with making these slide presentations, it's kind of redundant to just say the words on the slide. So I would suggest more pictures or something that's going to be compelling and interesting to them. So if you do need help with the functionality of Zoom and sharing your slides, Lindsay is going to add an article from Zoom to the chat that has step-by-step instructions. So that's already in the chat, I can see. You can create a more inviting and relational atmosphere if you each show up with your favorite drink in hand, or even order in some food and share a meal together. So like, you're having this virtual meeting, but you've kind of agreed that you're gonna like go to Starbucks or something and each have a latte together or share some food. Even though it's virtual, it just kind of gives it a more warm feel. If you have done something fun and creative like that during one of your virtual meetings, feel free to share that in the chat and give others ideas. But also, just having a meeting with nothing extra is totally fine. So just be clear with what will happen during the meeting and how long the meeting is going to be, so that the potential partner isn't caught off by surprise. And please, lastly, always consider your dress for the meeting and your background. Dress for the meeting as if you were meeting them face to face in a public place, and make sure your background is not distracting.
Yeah, like don't have a bird in the background that's chirping. I had that happen once. That was interesting. And he kept yelling at the bird to stop squawking. It was so awkward. Weird. Okay, sidebar. All right, so our final step 4, is to follow up well, which leads me to another poll question. How many times do you usually have to follow up with a partner before they sign up? None. Most of my people sign up immediately, said no one ever. 2, usually once is enough. Or 2 times my partners need reminders. Or 3 times or more my partners want to give, but they're super busy. What do you think they're going to say, Marianne?
Number 4. That's my experience with my clients.
Yeah.
Is number 4. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's been my experience as well. So don't give up. It's what it says on the poll is true. People are super busy. So it really helps too to think of follow-up as helping people do what they want to do, because it is. Follow-up is super helpful. Your partners, your potential partners, want to help you, but they need you to help them help you. Let's see what people say. Yep.
Number 4. And
Number
also
4.
I want to add too that it's not just you. Like, everybody deals with this. So I have clients that they're like, oh, I feel so like I'm taking this personally. I'm like, no, like everybody deals with this. So don't think it's you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And stay away from I would even stay away from the word ghosting, because that just already puts you in a negative headspace, right? Just instead say, people aren't ghosting me, they're busy. Just say, get rid of that word. Just say, oh, they must be really busy. I'll try again. Better headspace. All right. When people think of follow-up people think of follow-up as primarily signing up in the system to give financially, it could also look like getting them signed up for your newsletter list or your prayer team, or getting connected through social media. Every possible connection you can make it. So let's say that the meeting ends in a yes to a financial partnership. We, of course, want to thank them and share our excitement for them joining the team. But we shouldn't just stop there. What are the next steps? If they aren't sure about an amount and they want to pray about it, great. Ask, can I follow up in a few days? Is that enough time? And then set a time where you'll check back in. Just don't walk away and leave it with them. And you might even also say after that, would a text be okay? So they're expecting that from you. If they have an amount, then it's time to share details on how to get them signed up. If they're there and they say yes to a $100 partnership, ask them if they can sign up right there. This could be a simple, I would do that right there in person. You could, if you're on the Zoom call, you could put the link to your platform, and not like the link to your organization, and then they have to click a bunch of other times. Go ahead and get to your giving site, to where your giving page is, that landing page, right click that and put that in the chat box, and then have them click it and walk it through together. If that's not available, if that's not possible, it could be an email afterwards or a message with a link, something like that, that has some instructions in it after the call. But, if you're asking them to sign up right now, here's a transition. You might be like, that sounds super awkward to go ahead and ask them right now. But what if you said something like, hey, would it be okay if we just took the next couple of minutes to sign up right now together? That way I can track my progress right away. I can also verify that everything went into the system correctly. Sounds professional. It sounds like you're going to help them, but it also gives them an opportunity to help you. So sending that message afterwards with instructions, totally fine. Another extra step that we'd recommend, if they don't want to sign up right away, you could share your screen at the end. And then if the platform they're using, that you guys are using, has that capability, go ahead and do that, share your screen, and then walk them through how to sign up to give so that they can then see it with their own eyes. It helps immensely, especially when you have a multi-step process to getting someone signed up. Another great option is to record a video of you signing up and send that to them with a written step-by-step instruction. Again, the whole thing that we're trying to do is to make this as easy as possible for people. So your audience too, and try to help them in the best way possible. Be looking for their donation so that if you don't see it, you can follow up with them, or you can follow up to see if they had any questions or had any issues getting signed up. If they're slow, just suggest a deadline. Like, we're looking for everybody to get signed up by the end of this month, if that's possible. This is great because you've got holidays coming up. We're looking for everyone to get signed up by Thanksgiving, if that's possible, or we're looking for everybody to get signed up by the end of the year, if this is possible. So deadlines create a sense of urgency. Before we talk about group presentations, does anybody have any questions about individual presentations?
I've got one question so far, Deb. It says, there's a friend that unsubscribed to my newsletter, and then I met her and she said she loves what I'm doing. So how should I ask her to be back in my newsletter list?
Would you like to be on my newsletter list? I wouldn't say like you used to be and you dropped off. Just say, I'm so excited that you're so excited about what God is doing. Would you like to join my newsletter list? Or, hey, can I friend you on social media? If you're on social media too, do both. Would you like to follow our Facebook group? Or even if you don't have a Facebook group, do you want to just be friends on social media if you use social media? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So yeah, just ask.
Agreed. Yep. Thanks. We have lots of content left, so let's keep rolling and we'll save some more questions to the end.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, so a final thing we want to touch on is virtual group presentations. This can feel awkward sometimes, so we want to share some ideas to help not just make them possible, but make them enjoyable. In any scenario, you need to plan ahead. Don't just jump on a live call with no discussion with a group leader of what the flow of the call will be. Have a planning call, or at least an email exchange of what the call is going to look like, and then have some backup plans in place. So let's start with churches. Sometimes a church will want to do a live call with you during a service or some other gathering, so you can share your ministry. If the technology works and you're able to do this, do it. But plan ahead. Ask how many minutes that you have, because you need to cut your content if possible, and prepare a message for them. Or if you or the pastor wants to be more interview, like an interview style, then you need to agree on the questions ahead of time so you're not caught off guard, and have them in writing somewhere so that for some reason, if you're having a hard time hearing the pastor, you have those questions and you can just walk through them on your own. And always make a video as a backup. Not all churches have great enough technology to keep a stable connection or know how to operate the sound properly, so everyone can actually hear what you're saying. So always have a video that you record and send it to them ahead of time in case there are any snafus. If live feed isn't working, they can switch to show the video. And this can honestly be as simple as using your phone. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be edited super well. It's just the relational connection and just seeing your face that people are really wanting. If you are wanting to gather a group outside of the church, there are several options to do that. First, we're going to have another quick poll question. Have you guys ever done a group presentation, and on what virtual platform before? Have you ever done a group presentation on a virtual platform before? Yes or no? I think most people probably have. Deb?
I would think so too. I'm definitely know that they've done an individual one. Group though, I don't know about a group one. I'm gonna say for this group, no. I'm gonna say yes, they've done an individual, but no, they haven't done a group. That's my thought.
Yes, they have. 58%.
Shocking. Okay, good for you guys. Whew.
I think group calls are great, by the way. I think that they work really well if they're done well. The one people most often think of is calling into a small group. This is the one that I suggest a lot with my clients. So small groups, home groups, life groups, connect groups, whatever your church calls them these days. This is a group that already meets regularly, and the leader has invited you to call in and share more about the ministry. Side note here, this says that the leader has invited you. You can also ask to be invited. You know, you don't have to wait for the leader to invite you. You can say, hey, you have a group that meets every Thursday night. Mind if I come in and speak to your group? So these are great. And you need to treat them just like you would a church call. Plan ahead of time with the group leader and also have a video recording backup. Another option that people don't often think of is gathering your own group. Because of it being virtual, anyone just about anywhere in the world can join a call. Think of it similar to someone who hosts a small event for you and invites their friends to hear more and consider partnership. That can happen virtually, but you can also host your own call and have your own invite list. So if you do this, a great way to decide who to invite is to find a commonality in the group. Maybe you decide to invite people from the same church or company. Maybe this is a group who all did a short-term missions trip together, or they're involved in a particular team at church. Finding a group that all has a common interest can help make a call more personalized and relational, even with a group who may not know each other well. A couple of things to think through here are, first, how many people should be on a Zoom call at a time? What is the appropriate max number? 100? Do we want 100 people on your screen at one point? Don't have too many, because people on the call, they're not going to feel as needed. They may think, oh, there's so many other people on this call, they're going to give. They don't really need me. You want to keep it intimate to create need. Second, we want to create an awareness level. So what is the awareness level of the people you are inviting? Consider sharing the agenda in the invitation that you've already given them. How will you gauge people's interest in partnership? We suggest creating a response card using Google Forms, and we're going to talk more about that in a minute.
Okay, so here are our suggestions for managing a small group meeting. So first, you want to set the ground rules. And what we mean by the ground rules are those things like mute yourself, showing them where the mute button is, or I don't know if you knew that you could use your space button to mute or unmute yourself, the gallery view versus the speaker view, that kind of thing, or even moving that little line. There's a little line between the, well, never mind. Anyway, all of those things, do that either at the start of the meeting, or you could do that in a message before the meeting. So it could either be verbal, it could go in the message, or it could be both. Again, if you need help with that, the article that we mentioned before, Lindsay's going to put that in the chat. The second thing that we love to have people do is start with an icebreaker or a trivia question, a poll question, something funny, like a funny question or funny things about the culture, just a way to engage everybody and to make it a fun atmosphere. Then if you're going to do that, which we suggest you do, have a transition. Always, always, always have a transition, and then go through your content. Think about how much time you have to share and what's important for this particular audience to hear. And if you don't know what that is, ask the group leader. Ask the group leader what kinds of things they're interested in. When you invite them to partner, this is different. When you invite them to partner, you want to make a range ask, maybe $150 to or $100 to $250 a month. Make sure that that range ask is tied to impact. So don't wait for an answer in this particular situation. So you go through your presentation, you don't stop for question and answer, you do the range ask, and then you say, I'm going to put a link in the chat box to a short form for you to fill out. Before I open it up for a time of question and answer, could everybody just click on that link and take the next couple of minutes to fill out this form before I take questions? That way, I'm going to know best how to follow up with you next week. So there's places on this form to indicate what you're interested in, whether it's prayer partnership, financial partnership, signing up for the newsletter, or joining my social media group. Thanks, you guys. My plan is to follow up with each of you on Tuesday. And then everybody fills it out. And after a minute or two, you ask, what questions do you have? And then you open it up for that time of question and answer. If they don't fill out the form, that's totally fine. Still follow up with them though. Thank them for coming and say, hey, I'm just following up with our time together to see how the Lord might be leading you, or if you had any questions. And that can be a phone call, that can be a message, either one. We usually suggest a phone call after the follow-up. You've got their information, go ahead and make a phone call as your first touch here. All right, if an advocate hosted the meeting for you, make sure that you thank them and maybe even send a small gift. It's also appropriate to ask them, so hey, I'd love to do this again. Is there someone else that you'd like to invite? And maybe they have another group of people. And I don't know if you noticed, but with all of these scenarios that we just discussed, the process is the same as we mentioned before with a one-on-one call. First, you're going to plan what to share and how to share it. You're going to invite people to a meeting. You're going to have the meeting, and then you're going to follow up. All right, Lindsay, what questions do we have?
I actually don't have any questions in the Q&A box right now. So if you do have any,
wow. Are there any good suggestions?
I've answered several along the way, and a lot of it has been about things that are going to be sent in the slides. We'll send that in the follow-up email.
Has anybody had any good suggestions in the chat? I know that like people have been chatting with you all morning, which is awesome. We have a chatty group. Anybody had any good suggestions in there?
I've seen a suggestion or a good thing that they've done about pre-recorded videos, not interactive group calls. So that's been effective for them. And I was going to mention, if creating a form sounds scary, I promise it's not. It's really simple to create a form. I'm using Google Forms, or we really like Typeform as a service. Anyway, there are lots of easy ways to create forms. Email me if you need help and I'll help you.
So why don't we have everyone go ahead and put what has been helpful for you in this webinar today. So go ahead and put your answers in the chat box, and make sure you select all attendees, of course, so that everybody can see your answer. But what has been helpful to you guys today in this webinar? Everything. Oh, thank you. The online scheduler. Yeah, that's a good one. Lots of everyone's. Oh, you guys.
Oh, the online group meeting, that was helpful. Knowing your audience and what they want to hear.
Follow up, that is important. Yep. What was the name of the online scheduling? Acuity was the one that we suggested, Acuity.
But there's also Calendly and Doodle as well.
Yep. All right.
Okay, we do have some questions now that have flooded in now that we reminded.
Okay.
Okay, so how do group meetings compare to one-on-one meetings? I don't know if she means in terms of their success, or I'm not sure. Leah, you might have to follow up with us about that one in the chat.
Well, I'm going to say that they both can be super effective. And it really, at this point, I think it depends on the person who is holding the meeting. So if you don't have a lot of time, group meetings are incredible. You can talk to 10 people at once, 5 to 10 people at once. Individual is always great, of course, but they can both be super effective. Deb, wouldn't you say that they are both super effective?
Yeah, I think with an individual meeting, because of the way that we do it, we ask for the financial partnership right up front. You're going to get a financial partner out of an individual meeting. With a group meeting, they know that they're coming to something. They should know that they're coming to something financial, that they're going to be asked for a financial gift as well. But sometimes, you know, you're going in to replace their small group time, and not everybody wants to do that. So it just depends, I think, on the level of are these people invited specifically to a fundraising meeting, or are you jumping into replacing their Bible study for that week kind of thing? So that depends. If they know they're coming into something that they're going to be invited to partner and they're coming of their own volition to do that, you're gonna get an almost 100% response every time.
Okay, next question. Butch Gerald is asking, do you suggest using a levels of giving chart?
Yes and no. We find as straight invitation to partner very effective, because we want to limit the choices that people have. There's so many choices. People are being flooded with so much information. If you can limit their choices, then we suggest not using one. But if you do feel the need to use one, then being able to create one where, number one, I would say try not to have a $25 ask, because that's a lot of partners when you think about how many people it's going to take to make up your team. So start, the average gift in America before the recession, I don't know what it is now, was $100 a month. So start a little bit higher, but your lowest amount, only have like 2 people at that amount, and make the other amounts a little bit higher so that they see that there's more people that you need at the $100 level than at the $50 level. You can always put people down. If those levels get filled up, you can always add another one.
Yes, you can always change those partner charts for sure.
Yeah,
Are there any other questions?
Yeah, Jason says he feels so out of touch with people in his home country. He's been gone for 14 years. So how can he reconnect when it's been so long since he's seen people?
Do you ever go on a home assignment?
Do you do social media? That would be my other. Message them, follow their life,
Yeah, I would say social media for sure. Just even if you don't like it, get on and just make it all about your mission. All right, any others?
Yeah, Thomas is asking, what about offering prayer or the role of it?
Like prayer partnership, prayer support,
or perhaps a prayer for them in the presentation, in the meeting when you're connecting with someone, of course.
Sure, yeah, and I think if that, I mean, bathe everything in prayer, from the reach outs that you do, the calls beforehand. You could even ask a group of people to be praying for that meeting outside of the meeting. Prayer is hugely powerful. So yes, you can pray in the meeting, outside the meeting, pray. We're absolutely all about that for sure.
Paul asked, can you give a few examples of the fun starter questions for group meetings? You can ask them what their favorite Thanksgiving side is. We sometimes try to practice what we've reached.
Yeah.
So one that I like is, because we serve in Ireland, I like to say things like, okay, how many castles or castle ruins are in Ireland? Take a wild guess. And I usually get, 250 or 500 castles or castle ruins in the whole country of Ireland. And after we get some chat going, I say, no, it's actually 30,000. So,
wow.
So something fun about a fun fact about your country is super great to use something like that. That's one example. I don't know if you have any others, Deb.
I had one guy who started with a picture. He was in Jordan, I believe, and he had a picture of a vendor selling cow dogs. And he had a multiple choice as to what people could guess what it was. And anyway, it was actually, they are selling hot dogs made of beef, because in the Middle East, they can't eat pork. So they would never sell hot dogs. So they were selling cow dogs. So anyway, you could use pictures and things like that too, and make little quizzes. The other fun one to use, what is that? Oh shoot, a Kahoot. Kahoot is a good little, if you want to do like a multiple choice kind of game show sort of a feel to it, or a game thing. Teachers use Kahoot a lot, and it's great. And I think it's free also.
Yeah. And as a follow-up for Thomas's question about prayer, he said, if you ask how they're doing and you initially connect with them and they say some big thing is happening, someone has passed away, or there's another serious issue, you need to integrate that in to connect with them. So do you do that at first? How do you handle that situation?
I probably would handle that first right away.
Yeah.
I did yesterday in a coaching call. I had a guy who's one of his students was shot. And I was like, we're gonna stop and pray right now.
Yep.
I mean, the people that you're on the call with are used to praying, right? I mean, I would think that they would want to do that and that they would want to care. So absolutely, I think that's and Thomas, it seems like prayer is very near and dear to your heart. And that's part of your DNA of everything that, of what it is that you're doing. So if that's a natural overflow of your heart, follow the Spirit's leading and pray.
Certainly. As a follow-up to Jason's question about connecting with partners after having been in country for a long time, he said he doesn't see everybody when he goes home on home assignment, and he does have social media, but he lives in a closed country. So I don't know if we have other folks that may live in a closed country that have tips on how to share, how to connect with partners whenever that's your place of service.
Yeah, if anybody wants to, if you're willing to put that in the chat, that would be great.
My question too would be, Jason, do you have a communication plan? Are these people partners that you're talking about? Having a communication plan where you're in touch with people, whether it's via text or an email, something extra outside of your newsletter, where you're touching base with people a couple of times a year is super helpful as well. And that may take, really planning in your week to say, I'm going to, divide up my list of people, and once a week, I'm going to do something, whether that's send them a short video, a picture with a text, an email, just a text message, call them personally, FaceTime with them or Zoom with them. There's all kinds of touch points that you can have throughout the year with your partners that really help bolster that relationship for years to come. So if you don't have something like that in place, I would start there. Hey, I noticed that we're running out of time. We're at the top of the hour and we still have questions. We would love to stay on and answer all of these questions, and we are going to do that. But we also want to recognize that there are people who need to go ahead and go. So we want to be respectful of your time. So we just want to say thank you so much for coming. And at this point, we would love for you to schedule an appointment with Bennie. He's one of our other tailored coaches, to set up a free call so that he can answer any questions that you have about whether coaching is right for you. And then he can help you with potential next steps. So everybody just go ahead and click on that link and sign up with Bennie. And then if you found today's webinar helpful, we are offering a $25 Amazon gift card to anyone who would take a 30-second selfie video to share what you found most helpful. So you're going to receive a separate email about this with instructions from one of our other coaches. Her name's Hannah Weidman. So you'll be able to see all the instructions for that. So we have loved being with you today. It's so great when we have such an energetic audience. Thank you for interacting with Lindsay in the chat and with us in the Q&A. We hope that you're walking away with some really valuable tips on creating a strategy for virtual fundraising, because we view you as a partner in the Great Commission. So if you decide to pursue coaching, we're going to personalize our approach with you based on your situation, your needs. Sometimes we're going to train you in best practices. Other times we're going to create awareness around potential challenges, but always we're going to share resources with you from our vast library that you can use to tailor things to your particular audience. We're here to encourage you, to motivate you, to lift you up, to empower you, and to support you in any way we can. And we would love for you to follow us on social media. There's free resources and more. The links are here. The suggestions are here in the slides. Lindsay is going to forward all of this stuff to you. So thank you so much for being with us. If you need to jump off, have a wonderful Thanksgiving and a wonderful New Year. Anybody who wants to stay on, we're just going to keep on trucking with questions.
All right. From the top, Butch mentioned he had a person he was going to ask for $100 a month, but he didn't. Used a giving chart, and they chose the $300 option. So there's a promo for the giving chart.
There you go. That's awesome.
That's amazing.
Great. Yep. Use it. Seems like it's being effective.
Meta mentioned, what if we cannot expose about their mission in their social media? So someone in the chat mentioned, I think we even kind of talked about this, but Someone in the chat mentioned that they don't share personal things on social media, but they do have social media as a way to connect with people. And then they share personal things over the phone or via text. So that might be a good option for you. And another thing that we recommend trying out is something called Epistle. And I think it's supposed to be pretty safe, but I would look into it.
Yeah, it's kind of like Instagram a little bit. It's private though, and it's safe for closed countries. Definitely look into Epistle, what it's called. You can share, photos and updates there.
I think it's epistle.today, isn't it? I think that's the website. Epistle.today. Okay.
Yeah, Leah says yes. Let's see. Another is, what about when people talk about politics when you're trying to engage in small talk? Yikes.
Yikes
Redirect.
is right. Yeah.
Always redirect. Don't go down that trail. Don't get sucked
Yep.
into that.
Nope.
Just say no. Kind of like with your children, when they ask you questions and you redirect them. The art of distraction. Hey, what's a cow dog?
Do you suggest creating social media groups where you only share ministry items like for prayer and specific updates?
Yes.
Sure.
I think those are great. You can hit it. You can choose private or secret group as well, so in case you want it to be completely private.
Let's see. I think, oh, well, here's one more. This one we may have already touched on, but there are privacy laws in many countries now, and it makes it hard to post on social media. Knowing how to post about my ministry on social media has always been a struggle because of my friends. They're the people that she's reaching to share the gospel. So any suggestions for her?
I would suggest the private group. Same here. I don't post anything about my ministry on social media. I have a private group that I invite people to. So that's my suggestion there. Deb, what would you think? Same?
Absolutely. Yeah. And ask your other coworkers too. What do you guys do? How do you handle this? Because you're a lot of times your coworkers or your organization may even have some great ideas for you too.
And then is the giving chart something digital too? Do you include that in your presentation?
You can, if you're sharing your screen, you can certainly do that. You can also have a digital copy of it that you can link in the chat feature in Zoom, or you can just send it through email and have them open up their email if you want to while you're doing it. There's lots of different options, but yeah, you can definitely use that digitally.
Okay, I think we got them all. Somebody flag me elsewhere if we didn't. That's it.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Good.
Yes.